Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm over here drinking coffee and all this stuff, and just trying to wake up for the day, and then something popped into my head. Something honestly popped in my head. Something that I honestly wanted to say because this is something I think we can basically use against the anti-gunners, or at least something that we can use against people who try to say, "Oh, we need more restrictive gun laws." There are worse ways to die, ladies and gentlemen. I'm saying this as someone who actually has a mother who is in the medical field and has military veteran family members and those who have actually served in the very bloody conflicts of our history. And I gotta say this now. From hearing them talk and hearing them share their experiences on the battlefield, from the battlefield, and even the dark annals of history, I can safely say that if I had to choose, the two ways I'd rather go out. Number one, I'd rather go out in my sleep. I'd rather be asleep when I die, so that way I can go out peacefully. Number two, I'd rather have a bullet. I'd rather get a bullet to the head, that way I can go quickly. Because, if you really think about it, all these people who all these people who try to be anti-gunners try to say, oh, guns are the worst thing possible. No, it's not. It's not. Dying from a gunshot wound is not the most painful way to go. And I mean that, because if you really look into it, you look into the most painful ways possible that we as a species, that we as humanity have come up with the most savage ways to kill each other, then being shot is not the worst way to go. And some of these ways that I'm about to tell you how you can die, you'd want a bullet put in you just to ease the suffering and pain. You'd want someone to mercy kill you. So let me just go ahead and say it. There are worse ways to die. And the first way is being set on fire. I'm not joking on that. My grandpa would tell me that during the Vietnam War, whenever they dropped napalm on people, or even some of my veteran family who served in World War II during the Pacific when they used flamethrowers to literally burn out Japanese bunkers or burn out emplacements, would tell me that they would just hear these people screaming in agony, that it was the most unimaginable pain and horror and just outright depravity they saw on their faces. And thinking about it and actually looking at it, yeah, no, I can understand why, because I've actually read survival, like people who have been set on fire and have read their survival tales about the pain, the unimaginable pain, the fact that your skin feels like it's being melted off. I have read these anecdotes, I have read these accounts, and I'm going to say this now. If I was set on fire, like, seriously, if someone went out there and actually went out with a flamethrower and just started setting people on fire, I bet you anything the news would not be able to try and victimize it, because guess what? Anyone can make a flamethrower. Anyone can go out and buy a propane tank, a set of hose, and even a spray nozzle, and make a homemade flamethrower. It's easy to do. You can even take a squirt gun and a Zippo and be able to make a literal homemade flamethrower. Be it gasoline or diesel, it is easy to make a flamethrower. It is easy to set someone on fire. And I'm just saying this now. Being set on fire, one of the worst ways to die. One of the more painful ways to die. And if I was set on fire and I saw a police officer near me, I would beg them, because if they couldn't put me out quick enough to basically alleviate the pain or get me to a hospital fast enough, I would beg someone to put a bullet in me, just so I wouldn't feel the pain anymore. But that's not the worst way to die, ladies and gentlemen. No, we're just getting started. Another way to die, very painfully, and one that is not regulated, much like flamethrowers, because it's so easy to make, although this one is not easy to make, but can be made in your own backyard or your own, homemade laboratory. Yes, you know where this is going. Chemical, biological agents. Yeah, we're going there, folks. We are going there down the deep, dark rabbit hole of pain. Chemical and biological agents are an easy thing to make. They are the most painful thing to make, and while, yes, the only war that was ever used for, well, not the only war, but chemical warfare has been outlawed, does not mean it's not regulated. Because if you actually look at the laws on the books, technically speaking, it's not illegal to have chemical weapons. Technically. Because a lot of these chemicals are actually household chemicals. I'm not joking when I say that I have a friend who shall remain anonymous, who works for rescue services, who actually took a class because this person happens to handle explosives and the disposal of said explosives. But he was basically told that you could literally make chlorine gas from basic household items. And that's scary to think about, because if you think about it, someone could make homemade chlorine gas and just deploy it out in an urban area. And nobody know about it because it's basic household items. And you could basically do that. You can literally make painful chemical agents that can just torture you, literally liquefy your lungs, make you bleed from every orifice of your body, and make you die slowly and painfully. This is painful. And I have read the anecdotes. I have read the accounts of World War I when chemical attacks happened. I have read where people begged their brothers in arms to shoot them because they were dying painfully. I have read these accounts. And if you think about that, the fact that the government has no way of tracking people, or at least to my knowledge has no way of tracking people, you can correct me in the comments section, but really think about that. Someone could go to Walmart, or Costco, or Sam's Club, or any of these big, warehouse stores, and buy basic chemicals that you think, oh, they're going to clean their pool, or they got a large pool, or, they're basically going to purify water, and turn it into chlorine gas, and then release it onto an unsuspecting populace. Think about that. Really think about that. Kind of scary, isn't it? And, yeah, how can you demonize... And this is what's messed up, because if you think about it, if someone was to actually do this and they release a chemical attack on a U.S. city in a massive urban area, hundreds, if not thousands, would die from that chlorine gas. Where only a few, maybe less than 100 would die from mass shooting. That's kind of messed up, if you think about that. It shows how effective we as a species have created the ability to kill ourselves in massive droves without even having to use a gun. It's kind of fucked up. But then the last one. This one is one that has basically assured, mutually assured destruction. This one is the silent killer because it's odorless, tasteless, and is actually powering our cities. Nuclear elements, radioactive elements, yellow cake, uranium, plutonium. These are the very essence of essentially being able to kill ourselves without knowing it. Creating cancers, melting our skin, hair falling out, going blind, and dying a very slow and painful death. Because it's not the actual radiation, it's not the element that's going to kill you, it's the treatments that will kill you. Because if you do get cancer from these elements, from uranium and plutonium, and all the other stuff that we use for nuclear power, or even nuclear weapons, the treatments will kill you eventually. And you have to live with the knowledge knowing that you will die eventually. And that the ones who died from the initial dose of it were the lucky ones. Because if you look at the accounts and the survivor stories from Nagasaki and Hiroshima, I don't have to go any further. Because anyone could literally hijack a truck of plutonium or even uranium, raw, mind you, raw, unpurified stuff, drive into a city center and just pull a homemade Chernobyl, essentially. And while, yes, these elements are being tracked, that doesn't mean that someone isn't still going to be able to do that. Someone could very damn well make it, literally churn them into a fine dust and make it airborne. Literally, again, the scenario is scary in of itself, and to all those anti-gunners, I need to ask you, how can you assure that these three things won't happen? And before anyone says, oh, the government... No. I'm not asking how the government can do it. I'm asking you, can you give me an assurance? Can you give me, an American citizen, or anyone for that matter, an assurance that someone won't pull some kind of medieval bullshit with gasoline and diesel, lighting it on fire and just pouring it down into the streets below, or going out with a homemade flamethrower and just burning people alive? Can you assure me that some whack job won't buy tons of basic household chemicals and create a chemical weapon and then unleash it in a city center? How can you assure me of that? Or better yet, how can you assure me that the dangers of nuclear material won't be unleashed on a city center? That someone won't try to make a homemade Chernobyl or go into a nuclear power plant and make it go into critical overload? How can you assure me of that? Really think about that. Anyway, to the rest of you out there who are now probably scared shitless and probably now realizing that there are worse ways to die than from a bullet, let me know in the comments section down below what you think about that. And if you could talk to an anti-gunner, try and bring up these arguments to them and let me know what they said, because, like I said, there are worse ways to die than from a bullet. There really are. Anyway, I hope the rest of you can have a good day, and, yeah. I just kind of fucked up your mind, didn't I? Or at least made you start thinking dark things that probably shouldn't have been. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen.